welcome to another edition of Last Newsdesk on the Left. Of course, I am your host, Mac Paladin. And let me get crew introductions going here. Of course, we've got Adam in the house.
Hello.
And I'm, of course, making sure that the channel is actually popping up correctly. There we go.
Hello.
Come on. There we go. And it's muted. And, of course, we also have Kevin here.
Hi, how you doing? Sorry, just things are happening right now, and
Indeed. We also have the Petty fan. Who's echoing me? Adam.
We can't fix it. This has been an issue for weeks.
Yeah.
All right.
This is like connection. I don't know whether it's Discord or whatever, but
It's definitely a Discord thing. It doesn't happen over Skype.
Interesting.
yeah, it is.
Actually, Gollix and I. Speaking of which, Gollix is here. That was not an afterthought. I just wanted to make sure we got him in there before we went off on a tirade about him.
Fair enough.
But no, Gollix and I have been having that problem off and on with the Sunday Retro Gaming Emporium streams, and that's why we went pretty much exclusively to Skype. So, yeah, that's definitely a thing. Speaking of things, so the blackout that was supposed to occur today is rather interesting, and I want to be clear that we are not skipping it per se. We didn't really.
Very much aware of what's happening.
Yeah, we're very much aware of what's happening, and we want to say that that this stream acknowledges it, and being a sort of left-wing news outlet. These issues are very near and dear to our hearts. So what's basically going on, of course, is people on Twitch here are hate raiding other streams that are offline because they have the ability to raid people even if they are not online, as long as they know the name of the channel and so on and so forth. And they send their crews over there to mass report the channel and get them deplatformed. And this is particularly egregious against the LGBT plus community, because, well, right wing's going to right wing.
I mean, oh my goodness, a unique feature is being abused by hateful people.
Indeed.
Gee, anybody could have seen that coming.
Right?
But of course, it's Silicon Valley, and they don't really give a damn.
Right. So since we didn't provision to actually remain offline in solidarity today, we figured at least we'd spend a couple of minutes talking about this issue and the fact that we acknowledge it and support it, because Twitch needs to do something about it. People shouldn't be able to raid other people's channels when they're offline. I mean, that's absolutely ridiculous, and it does not take a significant amount of reprogramming to make that not a thing. Being able to report people's VODs and stuff like that is still going to be a thing, and there's no real easy way to fix that. But at least, sending your cast of thousands after people who have committed no crime other than existing is definitely a wrong that needs righting.
Yeah, well, it's another installment of, things happening because Silicon Valley doesn't give a shit.
Yeah. So that's our brief little talk about that today. Just wanted to let everybody know that we do actually care about the issue, and that we do show solidarity in our own inimitable way.
Yeah, we know this is going on. We know this is happening. It needs to freaking stop. And I don't have my hopes because it's Silicon Valley, and Silicon Valley is full of shit on this stuff.
Well,
You never know. Maybe pressure will come. I don't know.
Twitch and Amazon, by extension, have pulled a lot of support for games like published by Activision and Blizzard that they were investing advertising revenue in, and so on and so forth during that debacle. So I mean, it's possible they may actually care on some level about some stuff, but
hopefully they hear. But
yeah. I'm not expecting a grand gesture. That's for sure.
Right, I mean, it's easier when it's dealing with somebody else's problem.
Well,
When it's your own problem.
especially somebody who's indirectly a competitor.
Yeah, pretty much, yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, but yeah, we know this is going on. We want this to stop just as much as everybody else does, and hopefully it does. There you go.
Indeed. All right. Now, with that behind us, without further ado, let's talk about a different kind of hurricane. Adam.
More like
Yeah.
more like biblical flooding.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, it's an actual hurricane. Like,
Yeah.
Though I'm not like the stuff that New York's dealing is the remnants of that. If I'm
But it's still connected. It's still connected. So
yeah, of course it is.
well, so you want me to handle this because I am the weather geek in this room here tonight?
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, we had a major hurricane Ida make landfall in Louisiana, and as a high-end Cat 4, was pretty slow in its movement over the course of Sunday into Monday, caused some pretty decent damage in parts of Louisiana. There was a real fear about there was a real wonder whether the levee systems in New Orleans would hold. It did, but it came at the cost of the city going without power for a couple of days. Although apparently, just tonight, some parts of the city got their power back, which is absolutely strange. And so the storm basically moved on and basically weakened over the Mississippi, Alabama, Tennessee area. And yesterday it hooked up with a cold front, and the cold front swallowed Ida up, and pretty much turned it into one big, massive rainmaker, and then moved it on up tonight into the Philadelphia to Boston corridor, with also the added bonus of some tornadoes that hit into New Jersey, which is not something you see, and not just tornadoes, but probably a decent EF2, EF3 tornado, a decent wedge tornado hitting New Jersey and causing massive structural damage, which is not something you see every day.
Oh man.
And now tonight, the city of New York is completely shut down. All of the subway lines are suspended because they are underwater. There are scenes and imagery of cities in Manhattan, Brooklyn, Queens, Long Island, New Jersey, all underwater.
So basically, the dystopian future predicted by global warming is we're getting a sneak preview of it right now.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, and I believe we're expecting significant amount of rain in the next few days in Maine.
So of course, draining out all these tunnels and getting all this infrastructure back up and running is going to be a damn near impossibility in the foreseeable future.
And here's another thing to consider as well. All of this rain is happening, and all of that rain has to go somewhere. Yes, we're probably going to see images in the next couple of days of the sun shining, but cities and roads underwater.
So Manhattan Island is pretty much looking like Venice right now.
In some places, yes, not just Manhattan, but also Brooklyn, Queens.
Well, Manhattan Island encompasses all of the city of New York, and its boroughs.
Right, sure, but we got to make sure that we separate the boroughs here. We can't put them all under one roof.
Right, but you see, Manhattan the borough, and Manhattan Island are two separate things. Manhattan borough is on Manhattan Island, which is the entirety of the physical city of New York.
Great Britain versus England.
Yeah. Like, the only real distinction there would be, say, between Manhattan Island, which contains Manhattan, Brooklyn, and the north side,
Maybe
so on and so forth.
Queens?
I'm pretty sure Queens is also on Manhattan Island, but Staten Island is a separate place.
Yeah,
Yes.
Staten Island and Long Island are pretty much the two outliers.
This is a testimonial about how America has failed geography.
Well, it's not like it's failed geography. It's more like people want to make their own geography in terms of separating the borough.
Well, I get that, but the whole physical island which the city of New York and all of its
Yeah.
boroughs sits upon is called Manhattan Island.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
But anyway, I did want to make an aside. I'm impressed, honestly, that 16 years later the levees held after Katrina. Considering the fact that we've neglected our infrastructure improvements for so long now, it's a miracle anything is still standing.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
In the wake of this.
it did hold, and it may have had to do with the fact that it probably came in just the right area and it moved just quick enough, because if it just sat there probably for another day or two, it probably would have overtopped that system, because it was only the fear is that what we're seeing in New York and Philly and all these places tonight, what's going to happen in New Orleans? And there would be like 6 to 12, like a foot or more of rain going to be hitting that area.
The condemnation here is that everything else that was old ultimately failed, and the only reason that the levees survived was because instead of merely patching them, we actually did something to try to reinforce them in the event that another Katrina, aka Ida, would actually hit. And so it's like we focused on one area and neglected another, and so that's the ultimate condemnation here.
The thing is that the thing that I always remember is that every storm is different, and we had like a major storm that hit that area last year, and it didn't cause a lot of the stuff that we're seeing now, and you just know, you just don't know. I mean, you could say it might not happen, and it doesn't, or it could actually happen. It's just, you got to treat every one of these storms differently.
Yeah.
So it's like, so instead of New Orleans getting flooded, you've got New York getting flooded. Yeah, that kind of works. Like, does that make sense?
I mean, keep in mind, Katrina was 16 years ago.
Yeah.
So, there was some time to make improvements.
Mm-hmm.
And indeed, they made improvements.
Yeah, especially when they decided that they needed to make improvements.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, Katrina is kind of the weather disaster of modern times.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It could have been the focus of an Irwin Allen disaster film.
Yeah.
Yeah. Except it was real.
Right.
And
no, I'm saying it was severe. It was severe enough. It's like,
well,
from a historical standpoint, it could have been right out of an Irwin Allen disaster film.
And of course, what we should look at this is that we always got to remember whenever things like this happen, people go like, well, why don't you leave? What you're evacuated. Why don't you leave? It's like a lot of them can't.
Are we supposed to evacuate the entire eastern seaboard of the United States now because maybe someday a hurricane might damage some areas? I mean, that's absurd. Displace what, 100 million people?
Yeah, well, it's easy to say that because people like to think, oh, it's easy, but for a lot of these people, they don't have cars. Number one, even if they do have cars, it's actually a pretty expensive experience to take your entire family, never mind just one person, think about an entire family, driving hundreds of miles inland. There's gas money involved, number one. Number two, if you don't have some place to stay that you have like friends or family, chances are you have to stay in a hotel. Who knows if that's free or not? It might not be free unless FEMA allows it to be free.
Well, I mean,
and I don't know what might happen if it's a major hurricane.
On the opposite side of the same coin, though, there's sort of a chaotic evil side of me that delights in the idea of moving 100 million liberal-minded individuals into the heartland to
Well, I mean,
to utterly break their stranglehold on our
Okay.
political
They
system.
want to go back, but it's like it's more like it's easy to say everybody needs to get out, and it's like
Well, no, but
well,
that's
yeah,
what I'm saying is where, like you posited, but I mean, the simpler answer is where would they go? Are they going to move into Hurricane Alley where all the so-called flyover people live? Are they going to move into conservative areas and destroy their whatever they've got going on there? And it's like, how?
it's because
You can't have a mass exodus like that and have it and it's easy. It's easy to sit there in the cheap. It's easy for them to sit in the cheap seats and tell them, "Well, you could just move," and it's like, "Move to where?"
Well, see, when it comes to stuff like this, you don't evacuate the entire coast. I mean, what you evacuate are the exact areas where these storms will come in at, and it's not like the entire East Coast. It would be like, built. It would be certain areas.
I mean, to some extent. The real thing is we need to do stuff to prepare for it in advance so it doesn't become as big of an issue.
Yes.
No, I get that.
Areas.
I know.
Like,
I'm just talking. I'm just saying that the idiots who are saying that people shouldn't live there, the areas where they're telling people they shouldn't live are huge population clusters. So it's like, A, where are they going to go, and B, where's the infrastructure to move them? It's like,
Right,
so we're back to the original problem we've been talking about for weeks.
So here's the dirty secret behind all that whole thing.
Let's hear it.
When people originally are building their settlements and societies, because people need water to live, they tend to build near waters or coasts.
Mm-hmm.
Waters and coasts have certain inherent risks.
Yeah.
Geography is destiny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
I mean,
It's why I moved away from the east. From Eastern North Carolina.
Yeah, I mean, from antiquity, I mean, it was absolutely necessary. If you look at population centers of even the so-called old world of Europe, Africa, Middle East, Asia, Southeast Asia, the Pacific Islands, and so on and so forth, virtually all settlements are in coastal areas because central areas are mountainous, they're treacherous, they don't have a lot of arable land. There's like a Goldilocks zone, like when we talk about extraterrestrial travel, and seeking out new life and new civilizations out there in the universe. We were looking for what's called the Goldilocks zone, and that Goldilocks zone exists on land as much as it does in outer space.
The U.S. actually has probably a lot more inland, not anything particular other than a certain amount of time by rail or cart or whatever.
Right.
Away from anything else.
And again, that goes back to my original admonishment. It's like, okay, well, if it's so easy for everybody to migrate elsewhere, then where's the infrastructure? Where are they going to go? Are they going to move into your backyard? Are you going to allow that? That kind of thing, and so on and so forth. So it's like there's no easy solutions to any of this other than we got to do better to be prepared, as Kevin said. Or well, and as you said too, it's the combined message here is that there's no one shoe that fits all problem.
I mean, we got to stop going this thing and saying, you have to evacuate, you got to go, and it's like, because the inevitable thing is, okay, what about for the people who can't? And in a lot of these places, there's no plan for them.
Well, it goes back to
you're on your own. If you don't leave by the time tropical storm winds hit, you're out of luck.
Yeah, well, I mean, it goes back to the absurdist. It goes back to the absurdist bootstrap philosophy. The idea that if things are inconvenient, just do something else. And it's like, well, what else am I supposed to do? Give me options. Yeah. Oh well, I can't give you options because that would be socialism.
Yeah, whatever that I forget.
Make your own options.
Shop show. I forget what fucking pawn shop show it's from, but that one meme of the two guys yelling back and forth at each other.
Oh yeah. What is that?
A great one of those for on this approximate issue, only starting from the immigration angle of like, if they're immigrants, they should help. They should help themselves. Well, it's something or other. It's our responsibility to help it. Well, we should help it. Well, we should help America first. Okay, then do that. But that's socialism.
Right. I've seen that exact one you're talking about.
Yeah, that's from American Chopper, by the way.
Whatever. The show it's from isn't important. I was just trying to.
It's one of them goddamn reality TV shows put together by capitalists.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Anyway.
No, I saw that exact meme you were talking about. As soon as you started describing it, I knew where you were going with this.
Mm-hmm.
We knew what you were talking about.
Yeah, but it's the bootstrap. It's the bootstrap paradox all over again.
Mm-hmm.
Is it really a paradox, though? Like, considering that they're not fucking honest about it?
Well, that's why it's a paradox, kind of.
Yeah, I mean, philosophically, it's impossible. It's physically impossible to haul yourself up by your bootstraps. That's the joke.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that used to be a joke that the people who said that people should do it understood, and it used to be not a serious suggestion.
Right, and
then some people lost all sense of subtlety.
Right, and then from a philosophical standpoint, it's cyclical and circular logic.
Mm-hmm.
You can't do the thing. You can't do the thing unless you do the other thing, and the other thing is also impossible.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There's a hole in the bucket, dear Liza.
Yeah. Also, historically, immigrants have done this. They've quote unquote helped themselves.
It's just structurally a lot harder to do that now since it's a lot harder to afford a place to live and start building your family's wealth base. It's a lot harder to.
Well, that's kind of the other. That's kind of the other coin of immigration. Immigrants, they're the ones who tend to work the hardest jobs. Still true today.
For the lowest pay, no less, because they're not presented with a lot of alternatives.
Right, but I will. I'll give them credit. They grit the teeth and they do the work. It's like try getting white people to shuck corn. Like,
on a level of more than what we need for dinner tonight, anyway.
Right. Personal window box gardens aside.
Yeah. No, I'm talking about industrial farming and shit like that. Like you're not getting white people to do that. Not at the
and yes, for the hyperbole crowd, we get it. There are a percentage of white people who do it. Shut up.
Yes, but
that's not the point. Disproportionately, it's disenfranchised individuals who end up in this position.
Yeah, it's like it's been an open secret for decades that the farming industry and quite a few industries have been staffed with immigrants, legal or otherwise. Like won't say
otherwise.
Yeah. And once again, this is not a new thing. Going back to the 1800s, working the who built the railroads, the Chinese or the Irish.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Or freedmen or slaves, etc., etc.
Right.
It just changes with the generation. I mean.
Yeah.
I remember I used to live in Northern Virginia in Prince William County, which is as you know by the data is heavily Hispanic now. But in the mid late 2000s, it was still very early on in that process. But I lived right up the road from a 7-Eleven, and every morning you went to that 7-Eleven, and there were undocumented immigrants standing right there waiting for a job.
7-Elevens. There's another example. There's a reason why this
I don't think
area.
necessarily that, but.
No, seriously. The reason why the stereotype of the Indian convenience store operator came up is because
they would sell franchises to people,
and once again, not a lot of options, and that's where a lot of Pakistani and Indian immigrants went.
Right.
Yeah. And like I said, America is filled with these examples. Yeah. So it's not a matter yeah. I'm not so worried about like the recent Afghan transplants. Like if they're like any other group who's immigrated here, refugees or otherwise, like refugees. A lot of Vietnamese refugees went to Texas, went to Houston, and got into the fishing game.
Yeah.
Yes, and also, by the way, this has predicated on waves of white resentment, because guess who the real soft boys are? Because these motherfuckers who could never make it in these particular fields or would not want to make it, they get angry that these immigrants are successful.
Yeah,
and I really think that the housing thing is a very significant issue now regarding.
No, of course it is. Of course it is. But it's an issue.
There used to be some particular setups that I've heard multiple radio shows about, like the 3 tall apartment things where you start out renting one and then eventually hope to buy it and rent it out to someone else.
No, nobody's saying it's not a problem. Granted, it's all a matter of settlements. We don't know where the Afghans are going to be, where they're going to be settled. It's there's a difference between them going to, say, San Francisco or Vancouver. I know it's not America, Canada, but a big city versus if they get relocated to Kansas. There's a lot of refugees in Minnesota. Another example. So, the housing issue is relative. That's a big city issue more than a rest of the country, because kind of the opposite problem. They have problems with finding people to wanting to live in fucking Kansas or Iowa.
That's true.
Indeed. On the flip side of things, because I don't really want to go too deep into this tangent. Although the Afghan refugees is prescient to this week's information.
Right.
It's like on the flip side of things, under white people problems, I still maintain the crusty old fucker mentality that if I had the means to get on a rocket ship and travel to the farthest reaches of the universe to get away from humanity, and I put my tent stake down on some isolated Earth-type planet on the far reaches of the universe, I guarantee within 5 fucking years I'd have Ned Flanders moving in next door to me.
Yeah, pretty much.
Howdy, neighbor. I can't get away from people.
Yeah, I'm all alone. It's all nice, and then somebody's gonna come in and say, "Hey, I'm bringing the white people problems with me."
Oh, Jesus.
No!
It's like you could travel to. It's like they're like, well, go get your own place, and it's like it's the chronic problem of civilization is that it always follows you. No matter where you go, no matter how obscure of a place you find, no matter how isolated you think you are, somebody's going to somehow pick up your trail and just end up right on your ass.
Yeah, someone's gonna come. Just when you think you can get away, it's just like someone wants to bring it with them.
Yeah, no haven for the misanthropes among us.
Unfortunately.
I always joked about it that if I had the financial means, that I would just buy myself a plot on the side of a fucking mountain somewhere. And what would end up happening is within 5 years' time, isolated, harsh territory, no arable land, that kind of thing, and I would just be living in peace in my little mountain resort. And then within 5 years, I'd get a knock on the front fucking door from the Army Corps of Engineers telling me they're going to blow the fucking top off this mountain to mine for raw materials, and that I've been eminent domained. And that I've been eminent domained.
Yep. And then you find yourself back with the fucking moron.
Buy yourself the most undesirable swamp in the world, and they'd suddenly come in and tell you they're taking the land because they found a rare breed of mosquitoes that cures cancer. You know, something. There's always something.
Always something, yeah.
All
And
right.
then I think anybody who has the means should probably take a chance and try to get the hell away from white people problems, because white people are the biggest problem with this country right now. I think
Anyway,
that may be both true and not true at the same time. But
no, it's true.
yeah.
It's true. If you really boil it down to it, a lot of the real problems that we have right now are driven by white people.
Anyway, I guess
Now that we've got that laid out, let's move on to the next topic.
yeah. Well, because we got to talk about Texas.
Indeed.
And
Speaking of white people problems.
Yes, that's what I said, because it is a transition to Texas.
Yes.
Yes. Well, it's like, yeah. So, yeah, the current rage du jour on social media is the fact that SB, what is it, 8?
8, yes.
Yeah. One of the, let's say, red meat laws passed by the Texas legislature and the governor in a special session last May went into effect today at the time of recording.
Let me just note for the record, it is one of a grand total of 666 laws that went into effect today. 666.
Seriously, you can't fucking write this shit.
What a devilish idea.
Yeah. If you did. So, anyway, so yeah, in case you've been under the rock, this is the anti-abortion law that not only criminalizes abortions from 6 weeks onward, but also introduces a bounty system where if any private citizen can basically sue another citizen for having an abortion, and if they win, they get $10,000.
No. It's actually anybody can sue anybody who is supportive of abortion, perform abortions, etc. Starting at $10,000.
Right.
The minimum. That is the minimum $10,000.
This is observe and report. This is observe and report taken to its illogical conclusion.
Yeah, and it's probably this law is probably getting struck down eventually.
Don't put your chickens in that basket.
I would actually, because it depends on. There's a lot of issues with this.
I mean, even the most libertarian individual on the Supreme Court is probably going to be like about this.
Yeah, because there's a lot of just even taking away the abortion issue. That whole bounty system is a fucking huge First Amendment violation. If
it was a real problem, the Supreme Court could have stopped it before it went into effect. Guess what?
Yeah, the ACLU lost their bid before the Supreme Court to try to stop this law from going into effect on that basis alone. And I don't think they necessarily rejected it, but they declined to hear it.
Which is just that at the end of the day, because it still went into effect. And I would bet you right now
that's not the same. That's not the same as what we're talking about here. What we're talking about is a injunction. Now, it's a bit of a question mark as to why this happened, because the Roberts Court has just been silent. There's been no word. So it's also possible that they are working on the shadow dockets and the fucking things delayed.
And the decision will just come out of nowhere. Yeah.
The thing is, what they're not doing is being really transparent about what's going on. It's not just
right.
They literally did nothing.
They declined to hear it in the public forum. Is the only point that we're making here? Is like they're not saying one way or the other.
Yeah, and I'll say that it's just as bad because in practicality terms, everybody in Texas right now pretty much did abortions like up to the minute midnight hit over there, and are acting as though the bill is law, and the bill is technically law right now and is being put into effect with immediate
Right,
impact. So even if it's like a day or two, that's still damage.
I get that, but that's not the same as what we're talking about. Because keep in mind, we were talking about an emergency injunction. Yeah, that didn't pass. That's not the same as the Supreme Court ruling on it.
Right. They haven't ruled on it. They've just not done anything.
Yeah. Also, keep in mind, it's not the Supreme Court who's at fault for not putting a stay. The Fifth Circuit didn't issue. It's like nothing from the Circuit Court either. So nobody really knows what's going on in terms of the court proceedings.
Although frankly, you kind of can infer on it because the Fifth Circuit is the most conservative circuit on the courts because it's dominated by Bush, HWW, and Trump people.
I'm aware of that. I'm just saying they were silent on it. And that's not the same thing as declining or ruling.
That's a not insignificant development. The fact that they've said nothing at all, one way or the other, whether dismissing it out of prejudice or declining to hear it in the first place.
Anyway, so that
And
there's perhaps and there's also perhaps reasons why you didn't want the stay to happen anyway, but that's kind of beside the point. So what's going to happen, is that this is going to go through the court system through the more normal procedures. And though it's another question of which court system, because the Biden administration has said that they are going to take action. We don't know what that action is, probably because the Biden administration doesn't really know. See, the thing is, even though that this law has been on the books since May, and everyone, quote unquote, knew it was coming, it caught people by surprise.
Although I don't think it caught people by surprise, more like, everybody was trying to get the Supreme Court to do something, and the Supreme Court didn't do anything.
Possibly in the advocacy field, but, the Biden administration and the DOJ weren't really prepping a lawsuit, because they probably didn't feel the need to do so until, literally today.
And it's probably likely because, to be this is a state deal here, and they did not feel as though they needed to jump in and felt that the already existing people who were in the lawsuit, injunction process was fine enough. They didn't think that they needed to interfere, especially because, again, this is a state issue, and also, I think the headlines of the DOJ interfering in a Texas issue would kind of rub people off the wrong way.
Rub people off?
Especially in Texas.
That's a phrasing right there.
Yeah, especially, considering we're dealing with a state where the tourism slogan is, it's like a whole nother country.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll say.
So, the people on social media raging at the DOJ, Biden, Merrick Garland for not instantly snapping a lawsuit into existence. These things actually have to be prepared and, be good.
And also needs to fall within their jurisdiction.
Right.
And
the overall point is, I would expect the Biden administration to sue Texas over this law, but it's going to take time. That was always going to take time.
Although you do kind of fear, though, that if they take too much time, that the Supremes will render it moot if they decide to really go hard on abortion next year.
That's its own issue, though.
Yeah.
Because first of all, it's literally a separate issue because that's about what Mississippi's 12 or 16-week ban.
Yeah, but if the Supremes rule on that, chances are it will affect everything else. And
yeah, possibly. But once again, what the Texas lawsuit is, the Texas law is special because of that fucking bounty system. That's a huge thing.
Is a way to get around some of the things that otherwise have been ruled unconstitutional.
Yeah, so that's
and it would be doing the public good a favor if they got ahead of time and ruled that way of getting around it is also not cool.
Yeah, it's that's a dystopian scare on a whole nother level. Now, it's the fact that people can and by people we mean very well-funded right-wing groups can sue abortion providers out of existence.
Which don't even need to be in Texas, by the way.
Right.
So, yeah, there's extra cause to see this one go down in flame. It's not just, this is another fucking restrictive abortion lawsuit. No, this portends much more dire things, and guess what? It's probably going to be applied to other things if it's successful.
Yeah.
What those things are, I couldn't say right now, but Republicans can get creative when it comes to pain and punishment. I'll give them that.
Yep. We already know what they're going to do. They're basically going to carbon copy Texas everywhere. That's basically what they're going to do.
I'm not just talking about abortion. I'm not talking about having this bounty system.
Yeah.
I'm talking to.
They're going to carbon copy everything. That's what they do. Carbon copy.
Right. So it's very imperative to see that this thing, go down in flames. But, like I said, the issue of whether or not Roe v. Wade holds firm is its own concern. But, having a fucking, bounty system attached to it is next level nightmare. Anyway, we'll probably be revisiting this, whenever we get more news about it, since there's just a lot of, uncertainty because we literally do not know what the fucking Supreme Court is going to do, if anything.
Breaking news, just into the newsroom. Supreme Court refuses to block the ban. 5-4 vote, Roberts joined the Liberals.
Well, there you go.
Goodbye.
Huh.
That's it. There you go.
Well then, that escalated quickly.
Yeah.
That was almost expertly timed. But yeah, once again, that's not, that's the emergency stay stuff. So, yeah. Just gonna see digging in and fighting on all the venues.
Yeah, all that means is they're gonna work their way up the circuits until if and when it arrives at the actual Supreme Court's door for a legitimate evaluation of the law, and not a temporary stay, but a full review of the whole thing. Plus all the other related bills in other states and so on and so forth. The Supreme Court's really good at liking to consolidate issues into one thing, so that way they can make a blanket judgment on a hot button issue. Because since there's so many different variations on it, if they picked and choose which ones to support and which ones not to support, and so on and so forth, it would probably bring chaos to the entire process.
Yeah.
If it gets all the way to the Ninth Circuit, and the Ninth Circuit strikes it down, and then the Supreme Court declines to hear it, that's kind of a win-win for them, because it's like they've addressed the issue for one side, and the other side is just like, well, they were cowards anyway. So it's like, They lose no political capital from it
Yeah.
because
Like I said,
because they're
no-
not up for a re-election. Fucking lifetime appointees.
Remain in effect for now. So, yeah, we'll probably be revisiting this in the future. Like, still dismaying.
It's dismaying, but this will probably move pretty fast, I suspect.
Possibly.
Nobody's
Like-
nobody's going to sleep on this one.
No. Like, no, it's not just, okay, the Supreme Court has declined to block it now. That's it. Like, that's not how these things work.
Yeah, hold off on any dire predictions of this becoming a Handmaid's Tale until it actually becomes a Handmaid's Tale.
Right.
There's something to the effect of like this asking the Supreme Court to step down and do this is to some extent asking for divine intervention in a matter, and the result being that they say try the normal interventions first.
Well, it's like asking for divine intervention in a day-to-day trade dispute.
Yeah.
You know, it's not how things are done. That's not the purpose of the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
Well, I you know what, Kaki, I am gonna address this. I mean, it is a legitimate concern. But you know, it's like it's one of those things though that the system doesn't move swiftly on purpose. So dire
That said,
prediction.
it is unfortunate because there will be people who have bad stuff happen to them because of this.
Well, the dire
meantime.
the dire predictions, one way or the other, are pearl clutching and gnashing of teeth. You know, it's like we won't know until we know. You know.
I mean, blue states are going to do stuff in blue states, and red states are going to do stuff in red states. That's what's going to happen now.
Right.
Just got to deal with it. Because
And
again,
people,
frankly,
and people,
it has to be
Yeah.
said. You know what? We had a chance to stop this. A lot of you people decided you didn't want to do it. Oh well.
fair enough.
This is your bust, folks.
Yeah, I mean, until the political demographic of Texas fully transitions, you're going to see a lot of this kind of stuff, and it's going to be the same way.
Don't say that, because just because the demographic shift doesn't mean that this kind of logic is going to go away.
Yeah,
It's not just
demographics.
Yeah.
Demographics are not destiny. Like, do not make that mistake.
No, I'm saying that until they vote in people that are likely to vote for other things, supermajorities are still a problem, and that's what I mean by demographic change. It's like if you want, it's keep fighting. Don't rest on this one. Don't sleep on this one.
No.
If Texas is truly blue, then what you'll see first is a more 50-50 split in its government. Until that actually happens, you're going to see a lot more dire shit like this going down while the old guard tries to retain power.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if you want a solution to the Texas problem, get rid of Greg Abbott. Get rid of the Texas legislature. I know easier said than done.
Right.
But that's an actual viable solution versus, packing the court. Like, goddamn. A thing that was actually tried and failed, during FDR's administration when he actually had the backing of Congress. And this is going to happen. How?
Mm-hmm.
I just do not have fucking time for
Yep.
angry, but still wistful, pie in the sky resolutions to things.
Yep.
Court packing is not happening, okay?
Nope.
It is, we have to deal with the Supreme Court that we were dealt with because people didn't want to vote for Hillary.
Yep.
That's the summation of things.
Yep.
Well, and again, from a historical perspective, nuance and context are important here. the actual threat of court packing, I don't believe, was ever real even then. It was merely a political maneuver in order to encourage people to do the right thing.
Right. My point is, like, people on Twitter who are shouting packing the courts, they're sincere about it. They think that's an actual mitigation to a very conservative Supreme Court. And I'm like, no, it's not, because you're not going to be able to pack the court. Like, there's no support for that. Like, maybe it was an idea that was toyed around in serious contention.
And even if you did open up more seats, the only thing you'd have is empty chairs, because this Congress will filibuster it to death.
No, they can't. I will say they can't do that because the judicial filibuster was blown up due to Harry Reid in 2013. You only need a simple majority to get judges these days, but that's not the concern. It's you probably need to blow up the legislative filibuster to change the number of seats in the courts, and again, that's not a thing that has any real support. Like, and it's also, you do know that shit can boomerang, right?
Right.
Yeah, because okay, then what stops the Republicans from changing the number?
And that's what was just said in the chat. Yep.
Yeah,
That's what was just said in chat.
Yeah.
Good timing, but it's
at this point, I'm just done. Like, I'm just gonna do my job, vote for Democrats up and down the ballot. Everybody else should do the same. And at this point, you know what?
Yeah.
Right winger, and at this point, people had a chance to stop this, but because of one thing or another, they refused to. Oh well. Yeah. I'm done. Yeah. I'm done. Like, if I get more upset about this, I'm just gonna lose my mind. It's just like, look, I did my job in 16, 18, and 20. I'm gonna do my job in 22 and 24. You all do the same. Everybody should do the same. If you don't do it, well, it's on you.
You can't lose your mind over terrible shit that happens. Like,
at this point, you do your job.
Yeah, and it's also you don't quit just because a restrictive abortion law got passed. I'm like, motherfucker.
Look, it's like,
it's like,
because my conscience is clear. Mine is clear. I did my job in 16, 18, and 20. I'm going to do my job in 22 and 24. I mean, that's it.
I can
really not care about what the rest of the country is going to do at this point, because you know what? I mean, they made their choice 4 years ago, and well, we got what we got.
Well,
and we made, and quite frankly, enough people in states 21 years ago made a decision, but hey.
Anyway.
But
we should probably move over to the entertainment file.
Please.
I mean, I can't say it's going to be any more uplifting, but it will be less venomous.
It's easier to.
I don't know. I mean, I think our conversation was reasonably productive. I mean, we at least covered the issues without devolving into anarchy.
Yeah, I mean, because we're all on the same page in terms of the mindset. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so this week, in terms of entertainment news, we're going to be talking, about the passing of Ed Asner, who just died a couple of days ago, aged 91.
Right.
I don't think an official cause of death was released, but you can just insert. He was 91 years
old. Yeah.
And if you don't know who Ed Asner is,
shame on you.
You know some of the characters he played.
Yeah. If you don't know who Ed Asner is, shame on you.
Although for probably younger, there's probably only one role that he's known for amongst the younger generation, and that's his name from Up.
Yep, he was the main character in Up.
Right. Yeah.
The dog? No, I'm kidding.
But yeah, for people of an older generation, he was Lou Grant on Mary Tyler Moore in his own show.
Uh-huh.
And he was the head of the Screen Actors Guild as well.
That being said, yes, I will acknowledge that he was a 9/11 truther. Yeah, unfortunate. But, like, as far as conspiracy theories go, it's so quaint compared to today's, fucking horse dewormer will cure you of COVID.
Mm-hmm.
And just, that's the shit we're dealing with today.
Yeah, people actually taking medication with something that says on the bottle, not for use in humans.
Yeah. Anyway,
He was. I'm looking at his IMDb. He was busy. He was on Cobra Kai and
Yeah.
Grace and Frankie, Doug Days.
uh-huh.
There's 5 different things that are in post production right now.
Yeah, I mean,
So-
he's one of those that basically gets work until he dies.
Yeah,
He did a lot
he's one of those.
he did a
He's
lot of voice work.
Yeah. Pretty much.
Yeah. But his most famous role overall is probably being Mary Tyler Moore's boss on the Mary Tyler Moore Show.
Lou Grant.
Wasn't
Lou
he
Grant.
also Santa Claus in like a lot of things?
Yeah.
Yeah. Possibly.
But yeah, his biggest role is Lou Grant on Mary Tyler Moore, and also on his own dramatic show, which he's probably the only person that won a comedy award and a comedy Emmy and a drama Emmy for the same character on 2 different shows.
yeah.
Yeah. And he was also the voice of Cosgrove on Freakazoid. I feel like I have to acknowledge that because I'll be honest, that's my biggest memories of Ed Asner.
Yeah.
But independent of his actual acting work, he was a big time activist. Head of the SAG at one point, if I'm remembering correctly. And he led a strike that allowed SAG members to have health care.
You could just call it the SAG. Everybody knows that acronym.
Fair enough.
Not to be confused with the Film Actors Guild from Team America World Police.
Yeah.
Which is another effort by Parker and Stone at punching down.
Yep. And apparently he helped establish California One Care, single payer health care in California. So, he did a lot of good for his fellow actors.
Here's an interesting bit, and I saw this on Twitter, and Khaki Blue Sox in chat mentioned this. He also gave Michael Moore money for his first film. Michael Moore was sending out letters to Hollywood celebrities, and Ed Asner was the only one who wrote back and gave him a check for $500 and said, it sounds like a good film. I'm going to go ahead and support this. I have no idea who you are, but let's do it. He says, best of luck to you. So kind of got him his start.
And let's be fair. This is before Michael. This was likely before Michael Moore became what he is now.
Well, it was
his very first documentary that he was soliciting funds. Yep.
Yeah. Roger and Me. That's probably Michael Moore's most personal film because that was about actual issues that affected him and his pretty much everyone he knew. Because that was about the closing of what was it?
Flint, Michigan, I think it was the plant, the Fisher plant.
I'm trying to remember if it was Ford or GM.
No, it was GM. It was the Fisher plant. It was the GM Fisher plant because Roger, what's his name, was the CEO of
Smith. Roger Smith, and it's the GM plant, which Roger Smith closed, auto plant for Michigan, reducing Team's employees from in an area from 80,000 in 1978 to 50,000 in 1992.
Yep.
So we could
But
honestly, we could honestly spend an hour just covering the stuff that Ed Asner did.
Yeah.
There's a lot of it.
Mm-hmm.
But
politics probably cost him his job. So
you'd think, but
well, actually, it did because back in 1982, he was involved in advocacy for El Salvador at a time in which we were It was, of course, the newest proxy du jour against communism, socialism, etc.
right.
And Ed Asner supported a group that wanted to support El Salvadorians, and that was a big no-no because it was perceived as supporting communists. And well, let's just say people got angry. They talked to the network. They talked to advertisers. The advertisers pulled out. His show got canceled.
Wow.
Like, that is unfortunate. Right. Yes, shifting to other entertainment things. Not necessarily news, but it's been a few weeks, and I figured, people have maybe watched the last Evangelion film at this point.
Yeah.
And if you haven't, we'll try to avoid some major spoilers, I guess. But it's also, been wanting to talk about it for a while because, this is apparently supposed to be the actual end of Evangelion. Forgive me.
Hopefully more satisfying than the original.
From what I've heard, it is more satisfying than the original, significantly.
I mean,
some of it depends on what you were hoping to get out of Evangelion.
Yeah, okay. Satisfying is perhaps a relative term here because okay. If you were engaged in the shipping wars, oh God, no. Oh my God.
Yeah, but I mean, just generally speaking, and you know what's something funny is this is something near and dear to my heart because of the fact that Anno has really matured as a storyteller from the original versus the modern iterations. And I feel the same way about my own writings. The stuff I did 25 years ago is, well, frankly, not good.
Which you'd expect.
Yeah, so it's interesting to see an artist evolve in real time.
Yeah. I think the biggest takeaway from Evangelion 3.0 plus 1.0, Thrice Upon a Time, not the stupidest one of these titles.
It's very tongue-in-cheek. It's very tongue-in-cheek. I mean, he's poking fun at himself for, all the reboots and iterations and tangential storylines.
Right. But
and also, it's kind of literal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's also this is probably the most upbeat I've seen Evangelion be since maybe the middle of the original series. Because
well, it's no longer a catharsis. It's no longer a personal catharsis for its creator.
I wouldn't agree with that. It's a different kind of catharsis, though.
Oh.
It's a positive catharsis versus a negative one. Because, this is probably one of the biggest tone differences from Thrice Upon a Time over here and, say, the end of Evangelion. The end of Evangelion isn't cathartic. It's angry. It's a very angry film. Probably Anno at his angriest. I don't mean despondent. I mean just the way Shinji acts at the end versus the way.
It's a fuck the world message. It's
yeah.
But that's kind of the definition of catharsis, right there. Is working through your anger.
Right, but what I'm saying is, I don't think Anno actually worked through his anger in.
Oh no! But that's the beauty about a catharsis is that you can you can fail to resolve it. It can still be ongoing even after you complete something. You can transfer that catharsis into your next project.
Well, here's the thing. Like, I would say, like, the catharsis is here in Thrice Upon a Time. Like, this is him actually releasing and letting go of Evangelion. Unless, of course, the money's right. Because fucking Anno has said, if the money's right, he'll come back. Not necessarily dealing with Shinji, but he'll come back to Ava. Like, which doesn't surprise me at all, because, Evangelion still makes a lot of money. In fact,
a man's got to eat.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, that may be a little more cynical, though.
Yeah. I mean, is it cynical when you're being that upfront about it?
Well, that's true. But yeah, I guess it still is, though. I mean, because it's a condemnation of the system. I mean, Gene Roddenberry once famously said that Star Trek was merely a meal ticket to him.
Yeah.
Also, when he was stealing Alexander Courage's royalties, he also famously said, "I ain't gonna make any money off of this show otherwise." I think you can be upfront and cynical at the same time. I mean,
right. And yeah, it's kind of why I'm also cynical about this being the end of Evangelion. Certainly, it's the end of Shinji and this particular cast, but that's another thing about Thrice Upon a Time. We got a big lore boost from this world of Evangelion.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, they did multiverse theory confirmed.
Right. The original continuity does exist in an alternate quantum reality.
Yeah. Well, actually, they did a Cubes of Foundation ending.
Ooh.
And if you understand that reference, I commend you on your choice of Infocom adventure games. But yeah, it's like I can't really explain further because that would actually give away what happened in the movie. Let's just say, when Anna wanted to make this the final, there was a very final statement made. That being said, once again, we could still get a spin-off featuring, say, Retsuko. It's not like she did much in the rebuild.
Yeah.
Like, kind of there. Or, they could do something with Maya. A lot of the supporting staff that didn't really do much in these movies. Anyway, we should probably wrap this up for the week.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Anyway, well, Mac, is there anything you want to wrap up with?
Just quickly, you may have noticed that the Indiegogo did not happen. I may do a GoFundMe or something like that to try to get the last $1,900 for this film necessary to move the ball down the field, as it were. I'm still currently funding it out of pocket, and I did get a few direct donations from some fans. And of course, Uncola Man just threw us 100 bits in the chat, so we definitely appreciate that. And so on and so forth. But I'm still taking direct donations. I may open up a indefinite GoFundMe for direct donations and see how it goes. So that way everybody has a more immediate avenue to help us. But as far as major campaigns are going, I've kind of cooled on that idea for the time being. We really just need to get this Survivor film out and try to get it to the general public. So that way they can really understand what it is that we're attempting to accomplish here and what our current capabilities are. I did contract a artist from India who is going to be rendering a 3D model of the character Melissa Cobalt. And for those of you who are not extremely deep into the lore of Starship Moonhawk. Melissa Cobalt is the eldest child of Admiral Gillian Cobalt, commander of the United Star Alliance starship Galahad, a heavy frigate that has been reassigned to the Expeditionary Force, which is kind of the Star Trekian exploration arm of the United Star Alliance Navy. And so this is a continuation of the story introduced in my novel, How to Steal a Starship, basically 9 years later. And we are actually in progress planning a film using 3D models rendered in either Unreal or Unity engine, based on this storyline. And it is much bigger budget than the films we currently have in progress, such as Survivor and The Death of Perseus and the 3-part OVA of The Mercadian Affair. So there's a ton of stuff going on behind the scenes right now, but I'm working with a 3D artist to try and get a model of the main character of this film. I released the theme song about 6 months ago, the proposed theme song for the movie. So, yeah, it's like you'd think I don't have enough money as it is to get the films we're working on completed, and so contemplating a $100,000 to $300,000 production, it sounds insane by comparison. But like I said, I've got some things in the works that may improve our lot while we're working on these less expensive films. So stay tuned on that one. I should be presenting the 3D model of this character within the next month or so. And we'll be doing some animation videos of her doing various things as a sort of preview of what we intend to do with the show. I'm looking into background artists who are versed in both Unreal and Unity engine to help work with me and Kira while we contemplate this film. And well, I'll go ahead and say this. I'm kind of talking to renowned sci-fi author David Gerald about working on a future project. Nothing has happened. I just want to be clear about this. I've only started talking to him. So, you know, aside from that name drop, nothing has happened. So I just want to be clear about that. But those are my ambitions. And for those of you who do not know who David Gerald is, shame on you. He wrote The Trouble with Tribbles from the original Star Trek series and was a major proponent in show running during the first season of Star Trek The Next Generation and trying to get that series off the ground. He was a close personal friend and confidant of Gene Roddenberry's until the day he wasn't. So feel free to watch the documentary Chaos on the Bridge, hosted by William Shatner. It is available for free here on It is available for free on YouTube, with limited commercials. If you want to learn more about that whole kerfuffle. All right. Well, that's it for this week's show. Be sure to tune in on Saturday, when Varias and I will be returning to Paladins once again with our crew, or as much of our crew as we can assemble, for more FPS shenanigans and possibly failure. The documentary name is Chaos on the Bridge. It's a hour-long look into the genesis and a lot of the missteps along the way that ultimately led to the masterpiece we know as Star Trek The Next Generation. But yeah, until next time, I'm your host, Mac Paladin. Thanks for watching, guys. Stay safe out there.
Get masked and get axe, kids.